Hello students, I am teacher Svetlana, and in our today's lecture we will learn about biomolecules in a cell, which are carbohydrates and lipids. This is covered in the chapter Biomolecules. Students, biochemistry is biological chemistry that provides us the idea of chemistry of living organisms and molecular basis for changes taking place in plants, animals, and microbial cell. It develops the foundation for understanding all biological processes and communications within and between cell, as well as chemical basis of inheritance and the disease in animals and plants. Now students, the chemical analysis of all living organisms indicates presence of most common elements like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and others with respective content per unit mass of living tissues. Now chemically, all living organisms have basic three types of macromolecules, which are polymers of simple subunits called as monomers. The polysaccharides, that is the carbohydrates. You have polysaccharides. Have a look at this chart here. This is polysaccharides, which are called as carbohydrates. We have polypeptides that are present here, which include proteins, and we have polynucleotides. These ones, which are called as nucleic acids, are the polymers of monosaccharides, amino acids, and nucleotides respectively. Lipids are water insoluble and small molecular weight compounds as compared to the macromolecules. So here you can see all the biomolecules that are part of the living system. Today we will see in detail about the polysaccharides, that is your carbohydrates, and about your lipids. Carbohydrates, the word carbohydrates means hydrates of carbon. They are also called as saccharides. They are biomolecules made from just three elements, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, with the general formula CH2O overall N. They contain hydrogen and oxygen in the same ratio as in water, that is 2:1. Carbohydrates can be broken down, oxidized to release energy. Now, based on the number of your sugar units, carbohydrates are further classified. So, based on the number of sugar units, carbohydrates are classified into three types, namely the monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Have a look at this image here. It is the complete classification of carbohydrates. The first one being your monosaccharides. These are the simplest sugars having crystalline structure. They are sweet and to taste and soluble in water. They cannot be further hydrolyzed into smaller molecules. They are the building block or the monomers of complex carbohydrates. So these are your monosaccharides. These are the simplest possible units. So they are simple sugars. They cannot be further broken down. In fact, they come together to form your more complex carbohydrate. They are further classified as trioses, tetroses, pentoses, etc. according to the number of carbon atom in a molecule as mentioned in this table. You can see that depending upon the number of carbon atom, they have these further classification. Now, all monosaccharides are reducing sugars due to presence of free aldehyde or ketone group. These sugars reduce the Benedict's reagent, that is your copper sulfate, into cuprous ions, since they are capable of transferring the hydrogen, that is electron, to other compounds. This process is called as reduction. Now, so they undergo reduction reactions. Monosaccharides contain an aldehydic group, and if they have the aldehydic group, then they are called as aldoses, and if they have a ketone group, then they are called as ketoses. Here you can see some of these examples are here. For example, of aldoses, we have glucose, xylose, and ketoses are ribulose, fructose. Coming back to glucose, this is the most important fuel for every living cell. Its concentration in the human body is about 90 mg per 100 ml of blood. The small size and solubility in water of glucose molecule allows them to pass through the cell membrane into the cell. Energy is released when the molecules are metabolized by cellular respiration. So glucose acts as an important element, providing the necessary fuel for every cell to perform its metabolic activities. Then we have galactose. Here it is. It looks very similar to glucose molecule. They can also exist in alpha and beta forms. Galactose reacts with glucose to form the disaccharide lactose. However, glucose and galactose cannot be easily converted into one another. Galactose cannot play the same role in respiration as the role played by glucose. Fructose, it is a fruit sugar and is chemically, it is ketohexose, but it has a 5-atom ring rather than a 6-atom ring. Fructose reacts with glucose to form sucrose, which is a disaccharide. So now we will move to the disaccharides. Monosaccharides are rare in nature. Most of the sugars found in nature are disaccharides. Disaccharide is formed when two monomers react by condensation reaction, releasing a water molecule. This process requires energy. A glycosidic bond forms and holds the two monomer unit together. For example, we have sucrose, lactose, maltose. These are all examples of disaccharides. Now, disaccharides are soluble in water, but they are too big to pass through the cell membrane by diffusion. They are broken down into smaller intestine during digestion. So they are broken down into smaller components in the intestine. Thus, form monosaccharides, they pass into the blood and through the cell membrane they enter into the cell. Monosaccharides are used very quickly by the cells, but if a cell is not in need of energy, it releases immediately and it gets stored. Then we have polysaccharides. Monosaccharides can undergo series of condensation reaction, adding one unit after another to a chain till a very large molecule of polysaccharide is formed. This is called as polymerization. Polysaccharides are broken down by hydrolyzing these monosaccharide units. The properties of polysaccharide molecule depends on its length, branching, folding and coiling. We have example like starch, glycogen, cellulose. These are all your complex carbohydrates or polysaccharides. See here, starch, this is the stored food in plants. Then glycogen we have, which is stored in animal body, particularly in liver and muscles. Then we have cellulose, which is the cell wall component. Biological significance of carbohydrates: it supplies energy for metabolism. Glucose is the main substrate for ATP synthesis. Lactose or disaccharide is present in milk, provides energy to lactating babies. Polysaccharide serves as structural component of cell membrane, cell wall and reserve food as starch and glycogen. Lipids: these are group of substances with greasy consistency with long hydrocarbon chain containing carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. In lipid, hydrogen to oxygen ratio is greater than 2:1. As in carbohydrate, it is always 2:1. Lipid is a broader term used for fatty acids and their derivatives. They are soluble in inorganic solvents. So they are soluble in organic solvents or also called as non-polar solvent. Here is the classification of lipids. Let us try to understand what are fatty acids. Fatty acids are organic acids which are composed of hydrocarbon chain ending in carboxyl group, that is a COOH group. They can be saturated fatty acids with no double bonds between the carbon atom of the hydrocarbon chain. Palmitic and stearic acids found in all animal and plant fats are example of saturated fatty acids. So there is no double bond present. In unsaturated fatty acids, these are the one with one or more double bonds between the carbon atom of the hydrocarbon chain. Here it is, the double bond is highlighted. Oleic acid is nearly all fats and linoleic acid found in many seed oils are examples of unsaturated fatty acids. These fatty acids are basic molecules which form different kinds of lipids. Lipids are further classified as simple, compound, and derived lipids. Simple lipids. These are esters of fatty acids with various alcohols. Fats and waxes are simple lipids. Fats are esters of fatty acids with glycerol. Triglycerides are 3 molecules of fatty acid and 1 molecule of glycerol. Generally, unsaturated fatty acids are liquids at room temperature, and so they are called as oils, and unsaturated fatty acids are hydrogenated to produce fats. Example, vanaspati ghee. Now, what are the functions of fats? They are nutritional sources with high calorific value. Fats act as reserve food material. In plants, it is stored in seeds to nourish the embryo during germination. In animals, they are stored in the adipocytes of the adipose tissues. Fat deposition in the subcutaneous tissue acts as an insulator and minimizes loss of body heat. Fats deposit around the internal organs act as cushions to absorb the mechanical shocks. Wax is another example of simple fats. Waxes are not as readily hydrolyzed as fats. They are solid at ordinary temperatures. Waxes form water-insoluble coating on hair and skin in animal. Waxes form an outer coating on stem, leaf, and fruits. We have compound lipids. These are esters of fatty acids containing other groups like phosphate, that is phospholipids, sugars, glycolipids. They contain a molecule of glycerol, 2 molecules of fatty acids, and a phosphate group or a simple sugar. Some phospholipids, such as lecithins, also have a nitrogenous compound attached to the phosphate group. Functions: phospholipids contribute in the formation of cell membrane. Have a look at this figure here. You can see in this lipid bilayer the highlighted molecule that is there, which is a phospholipid molecule. It has its hydrophobic tail and hydrophilic head. Glycolipids contain glycerol, fatty acids, simple sugars such as galactose, and nitrogenous bases. They are also called as cerebrosides. Large amounts of them have been found in the brain, white matter, and the myelin sheath. Sterols, they are derived lipids. They are composed of fused hydrocarbon rings, steroid nucleus, and a long hydrocarbon side chain. This here is an image of cholesterol. One of the most common sterol is cholesterol. It is widely distributed in all cells of the animal body, but particularly in the nervous tissue. Cholesterol exists either free or as a cholesterol ester. Now, what is its function? Adrenocorticoids, sex hormones like progesterone, testosterone, and vitamin D are synthesized from cholesterol. Cholesterol is not found in plants. In plants, sterols exist chiefly as phytosterols. Yam plant Dioscorea produces a steroid compound called as disogenin. It is used in the manufacturing of anti-fertility pills, that is, birth control pills. Thank you, students, for participating in this lecture. See you soon again with the next topic. Till then, take care, be safe, and keep learning.